Hey guys, Shadowz here, welcome back to another Gear 6 video. Today we're going to be discussing the story canon choice death officially teased in Gear 6. During the Swarm invasion in the Gears 5 campaign, Queen Rhaena attacked the new COD capital city New Ephyra by invading the surrounding area of the old Ephyra ruins, sending in the Swarm forces as well as the Kraken, a prehistoric mega creature, to destroy the Hammer of Dawn targeting beacons and render New Ephyra defenseless and vulnerable to further attack. After using the Kraken to destroy the beacon at the Tomb of the Unknown, Queen Rhaena revealed herself by confronting her granddaughter in Kate Diaz, expressing her disappointment and frustrations with Kate's choices to kill the matriarch, failing to comply with joining the Swarm, the Locust and the Hive Mind, but instead continuing to fight alongside the humans as Sarah, despite her inherited family bloodline connection with the Locust Queen. As Queen Rhaena began to take Kate, JD and Del attempted to defend her but were easily overpowered by the Swarm Queen, as she was able to disarm the two and attempted to kill them using her tentacles, leaving both Kate Diaz as well as also the player to make the ultimate choice in deciding the fate of both characters and everyone's personal journey towards the end of the game in the Gears of War story narrative. Previously, we discussed in the Gear 6 video the story choice between JD Phoenix and Del Walker, who lives and who dies, by taking a look at the original Gears 5 campaign storyboards designed by the Coalition Studio concept artist for the Battle of Old Ephyra, which included originally showing that TC initially had the Gears 5 campaign feature JD surviving and Del dying in the character's interaction with the Swarm Queen, as the concept artist revealed the player's choice in the game was merely a gameplay choice and there was never a plan to create two different story narratives. Ever since the release of Gears 5 in 2019, with the ultimate cliffhanger ending in not only the true beginning of the Swarm War, the reveal of the new Swarm Queen character, but of course the story canon choice and who survives going into Gears 6. Well, what if I were to tell you that the answer to the Gears 6 story canon choice has already been officially teased 3 years ago, since all the way back in 2020? During an interview with IGN and the Coalition Studio discussing the Gears of War series timeline and how the Gears universe can continue to grow, the Coalition Studio's Gears franchise narrative director Bonnie G. Ma, who oversees the entire Gears of War story lore narrative, did discuss what the future of the series could look like. Firstly, to begin with, Ma discussed negative space and what it means to the team, where TC, following in the footsteps of epic games set back in the original trilogy, intentionally leaving gaps in the story narrative that can be filled in later, wanting to give people the freedom to have brand new ideas and to take things differently as the Gears of War franchise continues to live on. Bonnie goes into further detail by saying the following: negative space gives us a way of keeping some of our story a mystery. For example, the origins of the Locust were talked around in earlier games and novels, but because it wasn't defined in pure black and white, in Gears 5 we were able to actually take that question, where did the Locust come from, and tie it into Kate's whole journey. So those types of negative space little bits and nooks and crannies in our universe, when we're thinking about new stories, we do go and try to figure out what hasn't been explored yet, and where can we sneak our way in. The Coalition Studios Gears of War started with Rod Fergusson at the helm, and though he's left the studio, the creative vision he had for Gears lives on in the current team. Rod recently confirmed in an interview with IGN before he left as head of TC that he actually did leave behind his story synopsis for the Gears 6 campaign and the direction he would have taken it in.
The cliffhanger.
Oh.
Do you know what happens?
Oh, in Gears 5?
Yeah. Do you have like the story? Do you know what happens?
I mean, I know
you can't tell us, but
I know what I wanted it to be. Like,
okay.
That was the thing that, like, I don't know what they did. But I have no insider information. I don't talk to anybody at the Coalition. I don't even know if there is a Gear 6. So nothing I'm saying is. but like, I did want to make sure when I left the Coalition, I left them in a good place, and so I did write the story synopsis for Gear 6. It was like, okay, and so I was like, if I were to have stayed, here's the game we would have made. At least from a story perspective. Now they probably threw that out and said good luck and goodbye, and that's fine. But I definitely had where I would go with 6, and one of the big challenges, honestly, was that we did the crazy thing of killing off one of the, letting the player choose who dies. And so one of the big questions we always got was, well, whose story are you continuing forward? And I'm going to be really interested to see how, if there is a Gear 6, I'm really curious to see how they choose to resolve that problem I created for them, because some people are not happy with me when I said we're going to kill off one of them. And voice actors aside, they were also unhappy. But like the notion around how do we continue this forward with this variable of who dies is it was definitely a question for sure.
Question of what's the canon death is always going to be lingering over this, and I'm curious to see, as you said too, if they choose to tackle it as no, this is the way, regardless of your choice, or if they continue to play through it.
Yeah.
They're pretty big differences.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to carry both. Like it's, you could say like, oh, it's up, I'll read your save file and bring that forward and change the story, but that's a lot of work to do that kind of thing. And you kind of want the story to be not cookie cutter. You want it to be really like focused on whatever characters that you decide to move through that. So, but yeah, I'm people keep bringing up Hive Busters and they keep bringing up Gears 5 and because like a lot of my followers are obviously on Twitter are still Gears fans. I think some of them don't even know I do Diablo. They're like, what the hell is Rod doing right now? I think they still think I work Microsoft doing Gears, but it's a great reminder. Like I feel like in some ways that when I look at the visuals of 5, like I feel like in some ways that we were slightly ahead of our time in terms of how great that game looked.
Oh, yeah.
Even
always
5 years ago or whatever. So I'm really proud of where my 15 years with the franchise, took me. And
having Rod guide us and install that Gears DNA into our studio, I'm confident in saying that we live and breathe Gears and understand his intention for this franchise. We've been living it. We've been realizing his creative vision over the past 6 years. So now that he's gone off to new adventures, I feel like we have it in our studio blood and our studio gut feeling about what would happen next. And we do have hints of what he was thinking of, but he was also very open to new ideas for what would happen next. Gears Tactics and Gears 5 High Busted DLC were the latest canon Gears games in the franchise, and while it's safe to assume the Coalition's next big game is Gears 6, as a studio so firmly tied to the Gears of War franchise through its name and logo, more Gears stories are likely on the way even after Kate and Marcus' story is long over. The next section of the IGN interview with Bonnie Ma is super interesting indeed, as it seems like she is teasing several major impacts to the Gears of War story and universe by officially mentioning the story canon choice and the idea of stories set in the far future, as seen in the following. As for where they can go for the stories, well, that's what they've left all of that negative space for. Ma mentioned they still have more to tell of Dale's story, and they don't want to restrict their creative options for just the here and now of Gears either. She reiterated that the jump ahead 25 years from Gears of War 3 to Gears of War 4 shifted how they're able to think about their stories. And she said, so as long as they think it's a story players will get excited about, and that they're excited about, then stories set in the future are always something they'd be open to considering. Now, this is the first time TC have ever acknowledged a stance on one of the characters involved in the Gears 5 story choice, which of course holds lots of weight because the ending of the Gears 5 campaign positions both JD and Dale in the same character story arc with just small minor differences. With TC reiterating and reassuring the reader, the Gears of War player, that they still have more to tell of Dale's story, only suggests something major's happened to the character, such as being the official story canon choice death by Queen Reyna in the Gears 5 campaign. And unlike everyone else who is alive, such as Kate Diaz, Marcus Phoenix, and now what seems confirmed JD Phoenix, will have more to tell of their stories as they're alive heading into Gears 6's campaign. Despite Dale Walker being the story canon choice character death the Coalition Studio have decided to go with, doesn't mean the end of Dale's character story. It's just like in previous installments of the Gears of War series, and as Bonnie Ma discussed, negative space means there are always gaps in the story that can be explored, as in Dale's story prior to the Battle of Old Aphira and its death by the tentacles of the Swarm Queen. For example, in Gears of War 1, Min Young Kim was ambushed outside the Tomb of the Unknown, battling Locust as he ordered Delta Squad inside with the Resonator, before being killed by General Ram stabbing and impaling him with his Locust serrated blade as he stared into the face of death. Then later on, General Ram fought Marcus Phoenix and Dominic Santiago on board the Tyro Pillar train that was carrying the Lightmass bomb heading directly for the Outer Hollows. Ram was able to hold his ground using his handheld Troika heavy machine gun and his ability to control the Krill for offensive attacks and defensive Krill shields, but unable to defeat the two Gears. Ram was eventually killed when his shield of Krill broke and was shot to death before being driven on board the Tyro Pillar train into the Emulsion Pit and drifting away into the darkness of the Abyss. In Gears of War 2, Ty Kalisto fought Scourge in sword-to-sword combat as he was attempting to protect the other COG Gears as the grind list began to be deployed underground. Despite fighting valiantly, Scourge defeated Ty in one-on-one combat, resulting in him being taken captive as a prisoner of war and processed with vigorous torture methods, being imprisoned on a Locust Beast barge. After being found by Delta Squad heavily scarred and brutally tortured with bleeding gouges and deep slashes all over his body, he was handed a Nasher shotgun by Marcus, but the physical toll and mental trauma was too much even for Ty Kalisto to manage, and decided the only way out was ending his suffering on his own terms, a straight Nasher shot to the head. However, all three of these characters returned in the Gears of War 3 Ram Shadow campaign DLC set 5 years before the events of Gears 1, with the evacuation of Alima City, seeing Min Young Kim and Ty Kalisto joined by Alicia Valera and Michael Barrick as part of Zeta 6 to help evacuate remaining civilians, while General Ram led the assault by directing a Krill storm to ink out the sky and claim the city for the Locust Horde as a stepping stone towards an attack on the COG capital city of Thera. The Ram Shadow DLC is a perfect example of exploring more of that negative space to introduce new Gears of War story lore in the characters of Min, Ram and Tai beyond their deaths, as well as further develop what already exists, which is exactly what TC could be planning to do with Del Walker's character and telling more of his story despite being the story choice canon death in Gears 5 and exploring a point in the timeline's past that could also factor into the Gears 6 campaign. Please make sure to leave me a comment down below telling me what you think and what is your opinion on the Gears 5 story choice canon death being teased as Del Walker in Gears 6, and what do you think of TC still having more to tell of Del's story? For me personally, I previously released a Gears 6 story video discussing all of my reasons for why I save JD Phoenix as my personal Gears 6 story canon choice. If you do want to go check out that video on the channel, it was always going to be a one-sided battle going up against the son of Marcus Phoenix, and it would have been way too much work to attempt to create multiple stories based on player's choice. So I'm glad that TC have decided to go with a definite choice, and it's also interesting to hear that Gears 5 won't be the end of Del's story, and that TC still have more of his story to tell for those of us who enjoy the character. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you aren't already. If you do enjoy my Gears of War content and want to see even more videos, there is a playlist on my YouTube channel containing all of my other Gears 6 videos so far if you do want to check out more like this one. If you want to support me even further, you can become a YouTube channel member to gain access to emotes, channel badges, and most importantly, early access to all new videos before anyone else. I want to give a big shout out to all the members on screen for becoming a Shadow Knight YouTube channel member. I truly appreciate your support. So there you have it guys, full details on the story canon choice death being Del Walker officially teased in Gears 6. Leave a like on the video if you guys enjoyed it, subscribe. Really thank you guys for watching, and as always, I shall see you in the next one.